Welcome to this new video where we're going to talk a lot about Assetto Corsa. There's a lot of new information that just came out about the future of Assetto Corsa Evo, but also about Assetto Corsa Rally. These details are entirely official, as they come directly from Marco Massaruto, director of the Assetto Corsa Development Studios. He gave a big interview of over an hour, in which he tried to reassure the community a bit. It's true that the last few weeks haven't been easy for Assetto Corsa Evo. The community started to have doubts about the future of the game, especially regarding the future of the career mode, since the career mode was completely removed from the game with update 0.5 that came out a few days ago. But also regarding the open world of Assetto Corsa Evo. That's the big thing everyone is waiting for. The development of the open world has been delayed a lot. So, in this interview, he tried to reassure the community on these 2 points, but he also gave a lot of information about the future of the game in a broader sense, as well as about the modding system. So, I'm going to share with you all this information about Assetto Corsa, along with plenty of new gameplay images of the open world in Assetto Corsa Evo. We simply have the information regarding the next update, Update 0.3. As usual with Assetto Corsa, this update doesn't have a specific release date announced for now. They just say that for now, the developers are aiming for the end of February 2026, so technically in a few days. What we learn is that in this update, in addition to the Skoda Fabia Rally 2, which had already been confirmed for several weeks, the Lancia Fulvia Coupe 1600 will also be added. It's a legendary rally car from the 1970s, which notably won the Monte Carlo Rally in 1972. 2 new cars for version 0.3, but also 2 new rally stages. Both will be in France, by the way, since we'll have Boulogne-Vésubie and Sisteron in the south of France. An update, which will also add a new dynamic snow system, since until now, there was no snow weather. There was indeed a track that was on ice and surrounded by snow, but snow itself, as a racing condition, couldn't be applied to other rally stages. That's going to change now, since we'll have dynamic weather, snow, dynamic snow. It's a first for rally games. We'll have this dynamic snow system on the 2 new stages in this update. At least, maybe with a bit of luck, it will extend to the others later in the game. And so, with dynamic weather, the game will generate somewhat random weather conditions, based on several factors like the temperature, the altitude you'll be driving at, the humidity level, and of course the time you'll be doing the stage, which will make players pay a bit more attention before starting the event. What are the weather forecasts to make sure you've chosen the right tires? Knowing that in rallies with a lot of elevation changes, it's entirely possible that down below, at low altitude, there's no snow. But the higher you go, the more there is. Really looking forward to testing all of this. When it releases, I'll make videos testing the new features, so subscribe to get notified. Now that we've covered Assetto Corsa Rally, let's discuss Assetto Corsa Evo. On the other hand, there's more to discuss, especially about career mode, which was removed in the 0.5 update. It wasn't surprising, as we were notified days earlier. Up until version 0.5, the game was actually pretty strangely put together, to be honest. On one side, there was the career mode, and on the other, the open mode. In open mode, you had access to all the game's content without any restrictions. You could get the cars and customizations you wanted, do your preferred races, and career mode was pretty much the same, except that to get new cars, you had to buy them with in-game credits. You also had to unlock them by reaching the right experience points level, and you needed to earn the right to drive them by passing different licenses. So, it was pretty much the same as open mode, but just with a lot more restrictions. So, the career mode wasn't played much, players spent a lot more time in open mode. As a result, the developers decided to remove the career mode with version 0.5, considering that, the way it was currently set up in the game, it had no real purpose. And I think that, overall, the Assetto Corsa Evo community pretty much agrees on this point. Even though, of course, there's a minority of players who played in career mode rather than in open mode. Since we're dealing with a game that's focused on early access, where saves are regularly reset, and where most players play in open mode regularly, simply to test the new cars and new tracks, well, the career mode, for now, isn't amazing. So, up until now, the career system was really focused on money, experience points, and licenses, allowing you to unlock access to new car categories. All of that has been removed. For a career mode that should focus more on the competitive aspect, either being competitive against other players or directly against the group. Time trials. And that's something that really worried the community, because the career mode was a bit roleplay, let's put it that way, with money management, experience points, and other things. It's one of the main selling points for Assetto Corsa Evo. Before its release, it was the first Assetto Corsa to offer a true career mode like this. And of course, the fact that it was removed and that Assetto Corsa Evo gave up on it scared a lot of players. To try to reassure the fanbase a little, Marco Massaruto explained that, in fact, this removal of the career mode and this change in direction were only temporary, that Assetto Corsa Evo was all about offering the best possible career mode, that it was entirely possible that an economy system, experience points and money could be added back in later. But for now, basically, the studio had other things to focus on. And for now, the studio wants to focus on the core of the game, namely the driving, the physics, the multiplayer, the artificial intelligence, the virtual reality. The virtual reality, which still isn't very optimized in the game, as well as the performance and the interface. A whole bunch of basic aspects of the game that, for now, are not yet considered completely finished. Even though the driving itself is very, very good. The developers really want to focus first on finishing all these things that make up the core of the game, before later rethinking things. The way the roleplay career, let's say, can be integrated into the game, without it causing too many problems or compromises. From what I understand, the removal of the Clash 05 career is more of a temporary removal than a permanent one, just for the time being. Resources previously dedicated to career development, including human and financial, are now redirected to the game's core pillars to recover from the delays that occurred and continue in 2025. Maybe it's good news that offsets some bad news. Let me know what you think in the comments. The good news comes from modding, since modding on Assetto Corsa Evo will finally be a bit more open than what was announced at the beginning. If there's one thing Assetto Corsa can't mess up, it's modding, because it's really the modding that built Assetto Corsa's entire reputation. At first, the developers announced that Assetto Corsa Evo would be moddable, but that all the mods available for the game would first have to go through a verification step by the developers, in order to prevent stolen games or mods from being added. Because indeed, with Assetto Corsa, mods are kind of like the Wild West. Anyone can add them. Anyone can download someone else's mod, decrypt the files, change a couple of things on the 3D model, and republish the mod as if it were a brand new original mod. So, the purpose of this verification system was just that: to prevent mod theft, to keep barely modified mods from being republished, and to prevent low-quality mods from ending up in the game. There are mods coming out in 2026 for Assetto Corsa, one that, visually, looked like the kind of car modeling we had on PlayStation 2 games. So, it came from a good place. But this modding system was still quite criticized by players, simply because it was less permissive than the one in Assetto 1, and because this kind of system never really works very well. There are plenty of games with modding where the mods have to be checked by the developers before being implemented in the game. And yes, it does prevent you from ending up with ugly mods or stolen mods, but it means there's sometimes a huge delay between the release of a mod and its official arrival in the game. In the end, the developers explained that modding would be much closer to Assetto Corsa, that there's not really any verification or limitation when it comes to content, and this, on the other hand, is really cool. The developers will, in the more or less long term, make the same tool available to players, more or less the one that was actually used to develop the tracks in the game. A tool that can actually read data from a LiDAR scan, so that players can recreate the roads of their choice in-game. The principle of LiDAR is that you can hold a phone in your hand that has a LiDAR scanner, and it records data of everything it sees, basically, everything around it. This creates large files that can then be interpreted by a LiDAR reader, which can then reconstruct in 3D everything the scanner has seen. So, it would give players who aren't necessarily familiar with 3D modeling the ability to quickly develop high-quality environments. Taking inspiration from real roads, the developers aim to add a tool to the game that will speed up car modeling and integrate tools that were previously only available as mods. I'm thinking, for example, of a mod whose name I can't remember, but it lets you customize your car's performance in Assetto Corsa 1. It's simply a vehicle performance editor. Here, the idea would be to integrate it directly into the game, for example, but also to include different systems that would allow for faster creation of visual customizations for the cars. The tools would be released gradually, giving modders time to learn each one before new tools for the game are launched. The studio is now looking to collaborate with top modders, so those who create standout mods might work directly with the game's developers, so that some mods can be fully integrated into the game officially, meaning that, imagine, you develop an amazing road using the NIDA scan or an ultra-impressive 3D car model. The developers could decide to add it officially to the game, hopefully in exchange for some compensation. Finally, Marco Massaruto talked about the future of the game in a more general way, and of course mentioned the open world again. That's actually the most anticipated thing. By the way, I'm going to show you a bunch of new images that are pretty cool and related to the open world. Before covering Marco Massaruto's comments on the game's future, I want to mention a few things I noticed in these images. There are 5 teased new features, some of which are really cool. For example, we have a new car that's confirmed, which we see driving in traffic. The Mercedes A45 AMG, which isn't in the game yet. The second thing, which is super cool, is also a detail, but for the credibility of the open world. It's really nice. There will be stores on the map that won't serve any purpose. They're mainly for aesthetics, but these are real franchise stores. For instance, there's a Lidl with its brand and logo. Why is it included? Simply because in real life it's actually at the place where the map was modeled. And having real stores, with real store names that we know, is better for immersion than having a fake store of a brand that doesn't actually exist in real life. It's also confirmed, by looking at these images, that there will definitely be a gas station system that we'll have to use to fill up our car. That's all. We don't yet know how advanced it will be or if we'll have options. For example, with gasoline cars, will we be able to use fuels with varying octane levels? I'm asking myself that same question about everything happening in the game, which reminds me of what Marco Massarudo said. I can't tell if it's good or bad news, but now the game has no career mode, economic system, or money. So, I guess that in the shops we'll go to in the open world, whether it's to buy car customizations, to rent cars, or to refuel, we won't need to pay anymore. And that seems to be quite... Marco Massarudo confirmed that since the game no longer has an economy, players won't have their gameplay restricted by it. It's good there are fewer restrictions, but I miss the role-playing part. In the open world, paying to rent cars and buy things was cool, because otherwise there's a part of the game's content that loses a bit of its appeal, quite simply. Number 4. Some cool things in this open world are that the traffic cars seem to be pretty varied, and there are also service vehicles. You can see fire trucks, so it's similar. It may seem useless for gameplay, but having real vehicles and services in the open world, like trucks for example, also cement mixer trucks that are actually used to transport concrete. All these are things you can see in real life, so seeing them in the game is also better for role-playing. Official brand dealerships are confirmed, but that we already knew. It's true that here, we see it again in one of the scenes, we see a sign, Ben Blue V. And it's also confirmed, and that's really cool, that we'll be able to go from the open world to the Nürburgring without loading screens, meaning we'll be able to drive our car right through the entrance. Nürb Tourist, you don't pay since the economy is gone, but you pass through a free toll. So, that will allow us to arrive at the Nürb and enjoy it however we want. By the way, I don't know if it was confirmed before, but there will definitely be a weather cycle and a day-night cycle. For the open world, it's currently a top priority for the developers. They want to add it to the game as soon as possible, and it's confirmed it will be released in parts, so we might have, first, I'm just saying a random number, but maybe 50 km 2 then. 6 months later, 300 more and so on, until we reach the final 1,600. And it's still confirmed by Marco Massarudo that the game is still aiming for its 1.0 release to have 100 unique cars and at least 20 different tracks. So, there are still quite a few positives coming out of this interview. The main problem actually with Assetto Corsa Evo is the delay that has happened. The foundation of the game is excellent. There's still debugging and graphic optimization to do, but the driving and car modeling are excellent. The big problem with the game is that they announced a roadmap at launch that was simply impossible to keep. And yet, the developers explained that they had done a lot of hiring. At first, Kuno Simulator Nice was a studio with 6 people, and now there are about 40 of them. It's much bigger, but 40 people is not a huge studio. Telling 40 developers they can create 100 cars, 20 tracks in open world, and a career mode in 1 year is clearly unrealistic. On top of that, optimizing the game, debugging it, working on the entire in-game economy, it all seemed impossible. So the main problem is that they announced a roadmap that just wasn't realistic. Now, the game may take 3 years instead of 1 to reach version 1.0. It's possible, so those were today's, and maybe this month's, updates. For Assetto, we'll meet in a few days to test the rally update. If all goes well, we'll test version 0.6 on AstroCord in a few weeks. Fingers crossed. The first testable parts of the open world. In the meantime, feel free to leave a like on this video and share your thoughts on the situation in the comments below this video. Come follow me on Twitch for the next live streams, don't hesitate. I regularly do live streams on AstroCord. To test the new updates, the link will be in a pinned comment. You can come and follow, you can use Prime if you want to give the channel a little free support. See you tomorrow for the next video. Ciao!